Hooty, hoo, all my stock market gamblers. Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. So glad you're here. What do you got going on? Well, they want to push this market up higher. Now, I've been thinking that it's going to pull back first before we go to a new record high. But if we can't break below the 10 and the 20-day moving averages, it's just going to keep pushing higher and higher. Now, I do think we're going to break below the 10-day moving average and maybe even the 20-day moving average probably starting next week. But so far, they've been able to keep it above the 10 and the 20-day moving averages, and we're just pushing it up higher and higher, headed to a new all-time record high. The S&P right around 6,000. I mean, the record, 6140 or something, and it's going to go above that. You're going to get a chance to get out up here, but I think there's going to be a pullback first. But so far, they've been able to keep it above the moving averages and just keep pushing it higher. We'll see how that plays out as we go into next week. But what I want to talk today about is, well, I want to talk about what's called the Genius Act. The Genius Act. What a name, right? What a name. I mean, only politicians can come up with a name like the Genius Act. Really should be called the Stupidity Act, in my opinion. But you got to look at words, right? I mean, look at the word politician, right? Okay, so politician, basically, you got poly, which means many, and you got ticks, right? Ticks, what are they? Blood-sucking creatures. So politics is really a bunch of blood-sucking creatures. Now, when you look at words, they come up with Genius Act. Anything the politicians decide to name something, it's always the opposite. But they got the Genius Act, and what this is, well, the Senate has passed this, right? And this is to make legal digital cash, right? So the federal dollar backed by cryptocurrency, actually cryptocurrency backed by the federal dollar. I got that backwards. In the form of what's called stable coins, right? So stable coins are going to save the bond market. Now, I've heard about this quite a while back. I was having lunch with my buddy Guy yesterday. Anyways, Guy Nor ran for the governor of Nevada, right? He's very connected. He's been in meetings with President Trump and other politicians. And well, their plan is to get these stable coins to buy all of our debt, right? So the stable coins are going to be buying all of the bonds because they have to be backed, according to this bill, the Genius Act. The stable coin now has to be backed by the U.S. bond market, right? Okay, up until now, like Tether can back it with anything physical. They have 50 tons of gold. They can be backed by gold now. But this Genius Act, the stable coin has to be backed by the U.S. Treasury, backed by bonds. So you got crypto backed by the dollar, backed by bonds, which is the dollar, right? Okay, so now this is interesting to me because what this is the start of is a central bank digital currency. You see, Tether is programmable currency. They can turn you on. They don't like you. They can turn you off and you can't spend your money. Now, our government sees this and they want to bring it in, right? And we already passed it in the Senate. This bill goes to the House and then they're going to make these stable coins, which are programmable currency, legal digital cash. Now, the bill defines it as a stable coin, as a payment stable coin. I mean, you can use it to go to the grocery store and buy your groceries. You can use it, go to the gas station and buy your gas. Right now, stable coins are used 90% to buy other coins, to buy other cryptocurrencies, to buy Bitcoin, if you will. That's what a stable coin is right now. But the U.S. government, they want to bring it in as a payment system, which becomes legal digital cash. Now, I'm telling you, we got to stop this because this is bad, but it's going to pass. It's going to go right through. We got the crypto president in there. He's going to sign the bill as soon as the House passes it. The Senate's already passed it. Going to go to the House, and then he signs it into law. And then we now have all this digital cash, if you will. Crypto is now going to be the digital cash. Now, the Constitution says that the only form of money is gold and silver. That's the Constitution. But we threw the Constitution out a long time ago. I get that. I understand that. Now, eventually, we will go back to gold and silver. This will fail miserably. You got a fiat currency backed by another fiat currency. It's not going to work, but they think they can kick the can down the road. And this is what my buddy Guy was explaining to me, how it was explained to him that this is going to buy time. It's going to extend, well, it's going to extend the big collapse of our empire. The U.S. empire is collapsing as we speak. You can tell just by the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. It lost 90% since we went off the gold standard, 99% if you go back to when they started the Federal Reserve. Straight down, straight down, straight down, right? And we got 1% of our purchasing power left, and they're going to accelerate that and take that away from us. Okay, so you got this Genius Act bill passed so that we can have these legal digital cash stable coins, which are going to buy our bonds because nobody else in the world wants our bonds anymore. They're getting into gold, the rest of the world getting into gold, but we're trying to keep that dollar alive. It's a dead horse. We keep beating the dead horse, and we're going to keep it alive as long as we can. Now, there's some other fascinating things. I mean, crypto to me is just funny money, right? Funny money. Now, I was listening to this guy. I mean, okay, let's see. He works at MetaPlanet. Maybe he's the head of MetaPlanet. I don't really know. MetaPlanet is another one of those, well, they're a Bitcoin treasury company, right? They're a Bitcoin treasury company. And this company, it went from 20 cents up to $12. That's a great move, right? Because why? Well, what they used to do as a company, they were a hotel company in Japan. They had hotels in Japan, right? And so these people, they took it over and they turned it into a Bitcoin treasury company. They took all the hotels and they borrowed as much money as they can, and they went out and bought Bitcoin with it, right? So they bought the Bitcoin, but they didn't stop there. They then took the Bitcoin and borrowed on the Bitcoin as much as they could to buy some more Bitcoin. And they took that Bitcoin, went and borrowed on the Bitcoin to just, it's a perpetual cycle, right? You buy Bitcoin and the stock has gone up, so they can sell bonds now and convertible bonds to get more cash to buy more Bitcoin. The stock's going to keep going up and up, and soon they're going to own 5% of all the Bitcoin. I think he said 1%. Michael Saylor's at 5%, going for 10%. Now, Michael Saylor, I mean, he cracks me up. You know, his average cost getting up to about $75,000 of Bitcoin. He borrows $1 billion every other week to go out and put it into Bitcoin, right? He's got over 50 billion of Bitcoin. Now his company's worth 120 billion, just like this company is worth a lot more than the Bitcoin they have. But here's this gentleman saying that all capital in the world is mispriced because it's not priced in Bitcoin. For example, if you had Apple Computer or Microsoft, Microsoft was actually pitched by Michael Saylor to do this. Microsoft being a $3 trillion company. What should Microsoft do? Well, they should stop making all that software stuff, stop making those real products, borrow $3 trillion. So that's what the company's worth. Borrow that money and go buy Bitcoin. Take the Bitcoin, $3 trillion worth, and borrow against it to buy more Bitcoin. And this would create a recapitalization of Microsoft from $3 trillion up to $12 trillion. See, all capital is mispriced. If they would just go and price it in Bitcoin and take all the assets they can, put it into Bitcoin, they could increase the value by 4, 5, 10 times, right? And they've proven it. Michael's strategy, $50 billion of borrowed money he has in Bitcoin, and his company's 120 billion asset value. So this system works. And Microsoft and Apple Computer, well, they're idiots for not doing this. They have $3 trillion companies, but they could have companies worth over $12 trillion, according to this gentleman, right? And his MetaPlanet is just taking off, right? Went from 20 cents up to $12. And he's going to continue to bankroll it into Bitcoin. They ask him the question, what would you do if Bitcoin went down? It was kind of funny, see? Now, he's saying that Bitcoin is the bedrock of certainty. Now, he gets that from his prophet, right? I mean, his God. His prophet is God. Whatever you want to call Michael Saylor is where he gets that from. The bedrock of certainty. It is certain that Bitcoin is going to go up 30% a year for the next 40 or 50 years. It's going to reach $1 trillion of Bitcoin. That's going to be helped by all this stable coin with the Genius Act, right? All this stable coin will allow more and more people to get in and buy the Bitcoin, to buy the cryptocurrencies. Now, as I keep telling you, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. I love gambling in Bitcoin, but deep inside, I know that Bitcoin is worth its weight in gold. I know that. I keep telling you that, right? And I believe that 100%. But this Bitcoin stuff is great for gambling, but it is not a bedrock of certainty. uncertainty. And what they're selling these businesses, there's over 100 of them now that have become Bitcoin treasury companies. DJT, that's Trump Enterprises, Trump Media, that is now a Bitcoin treasury company. You got GameStop. They put $500 million into Bitcoin. That is now a Bitcoin treasury company. You see, what Michael Saylor preaches is you don't need to have a business. You need to buy a business, get in a business. Like, okay, they took over that hotel business. That hotel business is now less than 1% of the business. 99% of the business is Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, his company, 1% in his software, not even 1%, I don't think, 99% in Bitcoin, right? You don't need a product anymore, right? You do not need a product. You don't need a service. You just need to buy Bitcoin, right? This guy in my gym the other day, he's working out. He's a young kid. Now he's talking to this old guy. He's trying to convince the old guy, you got to get in Bitcoin, man. I'm making so much money. I was in at $1,000 and now it's $100,000. And that kid, he's going to trade Bitcoin the rest of the life. He's not going to do anything. He's in the gym. He's a pretty buff guy. He spends his day in the gym. I see him in there a lot. But he's trying to talk to his old gentleman to put his retirement savings into Bitcoin. I wanted to go punch the kid. But anyways, I stayed out of it. But that's what's going on, right? Now, it's ironic to me, right? I mean, okay, so Michael Saylor, he's put about $50 billion worth of Bitcoin. Average cost up around $75,000. Now, if it goes below that, he's going to lose his company, all right? He's going to have to liquidate. And that's what's ironic to me. You see, the Bitcoin profit is going to be the one responsible for crashing the Bitcoin market. When he has to liquidate, when Bitcoin drops below 75,000, his costs, right? I mean, he's going to have to pay back some people. His stock will be free falling. Right now, I believe it's going to get back to 500. First time it got there, I shorted. It dropped to 400 the same day. I shorted that company. That was a great day for me. But I'm waiting for it to get back to 500 so I can short it again. But anyway, so he's going to be the one responsible for crashing Bitcoin. See, he would have been better off if his whole system was based upon gold. He would have been about the same level of success if he had put $50 billion into gold. But the difference would have been when he sells his $50 billion in gold, he wouldn't crash the market. You sell $50 billion of Bitcoin, you're going to crash that market. And he's going to be responsible for bringing the market down. Now, granted, I think it probably, actually right now, I'd say we're on the way down a little bit. So I'd say we probably get down to 90,000 before we get another big spurt. Look, if they're going to print the money, we'll probably spurt up maybe 150,000. But mark my words, within the next year or two, Bitcoin will be below 50,000 and Michael Saylor will be liquidating his Bitcoin, which will probably push Bitcoin down below 20,000 and maybe even make it extinct. You can crash the Bitcoin market with a $50 billion sell order. I'm telling you, you can. But you do you, I'll do me. I keep gambling in it. I love Bitcoin. It's the thing I trade the most of, right? Because it's so volatile, moves so much, right? Up and down, right? And it's pretty easy to follow. I mean, you just look at the moving averages, gets below them, drop below the 10-day now. That's why I think we're headed down lower. If we get back above that 10-day, then they can maybe push it up down below the 20-day. But maybe they can push that back up, right? If they get it back up. But until then, I think we're coming down, probably get back into the 90s, maybe even hit the high 80s. We'll see how that plays out. But eventually they're going to push this up, right? But the funny thing is that this money is now funny money, right? Everything's mispriced according to this kid. Capitalization. All businesses should be 4 or 5 times higher. But the problem with the business is they create real products. They create real services. They got to forget all that, man. They got to go just trade the Bitcoin, right? We don't need products anymore. We don't need services anymore. Just trade the Bitcoin, man. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to go up. I mean, every Bitcoin you don't buy today at 100,000, you're throwing away $15 million. Michael Saylor will tell you that. This kid will tell you that. Every company out there should be priced 4 or 5 times higher. The stock market should be 4 or 5 times higher. The S&P shouldn't be at 6,000. It should be at 30,000. All we got to do is just leverage it to Bitcoin and then borrow more money to buy more Bitcoin and then buy more Bitcoin, then borrow more money, then buy more Bitcoin, borrow more. And then we can make the S&P go to 30,000, right? 6,000 to 30,000. This is what the kid's teaching, right? Now, granted, he's young and I shouldn't criticize him. He's still probably 26 years old. Looks like he's 12, but he says he's 26. Okay, so he's 26. He hasn't seen any downside to this yet. Michael Saylor's prophet tells capitalism. It is a bedrock of certainty, and it's only going to go higher. Anyways, I find this funny money very funny. You funny too. If you like this stuff, give me the thumbs up, punch that subscribe button. Get out there, buddy. Have a great day. We'll talk again real soon. Bye-bye now.